Live? Yes, I am live. Hello, everybody. This is Jenny here. We are getting ready for our Facebook Live today, which is going to be all about freelancing. Well, I just very quickly check my... that's good. I just wanted to change the view in Zoom because otherwise you'll see me all the time and nobody wants to see me. You want to see my lovely guest expert. So, hello, everybody. It's Jenny here. I hope you're having a lovely afternoon. Today, we've got a really cool Facebook Live coming up, which is something we've actually been wanting to do for ages with Thalassa. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Thalassa van Beek. Is that correct?
Yes, Thalassa van Beek, if you want to pronounce it very Dutchy, but yeah.
Okay. I didn't know that, but it sounds good. Thalassa van Beek. So yes, we'll be talking all about freelancing, how to get started freelancing mainly, because I mean, freelancing, we could talk about this all day long. But I know that a lot of you are still very much in the beginning of this whole process. So there are a lot of questions. We see questions about freelancing all the time. Obviously, it's one of the most popular ways to become a digital nomad and location independent. So I'm sure there will be a lot of questions. So if you are watching and have questions, please drop them in the comments below and I will be asking Thalassa for you. So while I quickly check that everything is working, why don't you introduce yourself quickly, Thalassa, and tell everybody about yourself?
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. I'm super excited to be in this group. I've been joining this group about a little under 2 years ago, really in the beginning of my digital nomad life. And I've had so much help coming from this group in these almost 2 years now that I'm just super grateful that I can hopefully do something back and help others. So I was born and raised in the Netherlands. And about 2 years ago, I started working freelance. I used to work at a communications agency, but I really did not like the agency. So I left and I figured, let's just try doing this freelance. I come from an online marketing background, but I focus now mostly on social media and content marketing. And actually from day one, my freelance career has just been growing and growing. From the beginning, I made sure everything was online so I could travel. And this was before I even heard the term digital nomad. I didn't only, when I started doing that, I discovered that it's a whole scene out there. But yeah, it's been 2 years now, and it's been a really great journey.
Yeah, that's funny that you said that, because I remember you were actually one of our maybe not the first members, but definitely one of the first names that I kept on seeing repeatedly in the group and always interacting and asking questions and answering questions. It's so nice for me because I see these people who've been there right since the start when it was basically just a group for me to ask questions because I had no idea what I was doing. And freelancing is such an interesting topic and such a big topic as well. It's also how I got started myself. Completely randomly, hadn't really planned it like that, and I think that happens quite a lot. So the only thing that we can really ever do is, like you said to me earlier, is just share your own experience, tell people how it went for you and what worked, what didn't work, and so on. So I'm very excited for the live Q&A today. So I just want to check with everybody. I know some people are already watching, which is great. If you are watching, give us a little thumbs up if you can actually hear us. I forgot to ask that first. Always very relevant to be heard as well. And just drop us a little hello. Tell us where you're watching from. I know people are watching from all around the world. It's always super interesting to see where you all are. And obviously, if you do have any questions already, please don't be shy. Drop them in the comments. I will be keeping an eye on them and I will be asking Thalassa all the questions that we find. We have about an hour, so don't wait too long with your questions. I know most of the questions always arrive right at the end, so let's try to avoid that today and get all the questions out there. But having said that, we actually already have a few questions because I always ask in the group beforehand. Hi Samantha, she's watching from Cyprus. I accidentally told people the wrong time earlier, so I'm glad people are watching live. So yes, so if you do have any questions already, please drop them in the comments, and in the meantime I will be going through the questions that we have already over from earlier. So let me just quickly pull them up. Actually, I always have a few questions that I kind of prepare myself just in case, and also because I usually have some questions. So I'm going to start with them because they're quite basic. So the first thing that I wanted to talk to you about is like often we hear like, oh yeah, just become a freelancer is the best way to become a digital nomad. And I almost always agree, to be honest. I think it's one of the best way to get started. But on the other hand, do you think that's right? Do you really think that freelancing is for everyone? Or is there some cases where people should really go down another route? What do you think about that?
Well, let's split it up into different questions. One being, is it the easiest way to become a digital nomad? Yes, I think it's at least one of the easiest way to do it, because you hear a lot of people, dreaming about passive income. Obviously, freelancing is very active. You actually have to work for your money. While passive income seems to be this magical state where you can be someday. But the truth is, to make a decent income with decent passive income, you have to put in a lot of work, like from affiliate marketing or a blog or whatever. That just doesn't happen overnight, or drop shipping, while with freelancing, if you find a client today, you have your money by the end of the month. So it can go, if you're willing to put in the work, it can go really fast. So I think that was one of the reasons why I did it. I wanted to become location independent ASAP. So yeah, this was for me the easiest way to do it. Having said that, I don't think it's for everyone, because obviously you have to deal with this unstable income. You never know where your next paycheck is going to come from. Some months are going really well, and then there's other months where it's slow, and that's just not for everyone, and that's okay. And I think it's good if you know yourself and you just know that makes you maybe anxious or nervous, or that you like a little bit more security and stability. Then I would suggest to just look for a remote job as an employee, because those jobs are also out there. And of course, the downside of that is that often with these jobs, you have to put in a certain amount of hours. You have to, actually, you really work for a boss, and you have to, work according to their rules. But you also know that you get paid every month. You know what you'll make. You probably have some benefits, maybe some insurance or other benefits, maybe even working on your retirement. So yeah, I think it's good to understand what you need as a person and just go with what fits with that. And also, if you think that freelancing is for you, but after maybe 6 months you feel like, no, actually this is not, that's okay. That's not failure. That's having it, you gave it a try and you decide it's not for you, which is, there's no shame in that at all. So
yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with everything you said. I love it. I think there's so much talk about this out there in the online and the digital nomad world about, the quickest way to do this or the best way to make all this money and passive income. And I think you're so right in saying it's, that is really not the quickest way to do things. It's not the easiest. It takes a long time to build up passive income. And freelancing can be like a really, really great way for people to get started. And something that people also don't often mention, I think, including myself, is actually quite fun as well, to be honest. Like I've enjoyed it a lot being a freelancer,
Yeah.
There's lots to learn, lots of cool people to meet, and it's always, there's always something interesting going on, I feel.
Absolutely. I mean, every time you close a new deal, that's exciting, that's a moment to celebrate. Even, like your very first client, and then your first big client, and the first time you make more than you did in your 9-to-5 job. And really every new client is a reason to at least go out for a drink with some friends.
That is a good point.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay, so let's I think I'm just gonna skip all my own questions because we're getting questions in already, and I'd rather ask people's questions than my own. I can always ask you another time. So we are already getting some live questions in, but let's start with that one actually, because it's pretty good and pretty relevant, and I know a lot of people have those questions. So Pam, who's watching us live, hello Pam, she is asking, how do you negotiate a pay wage and implement it into a contract? So those are actually two different questions, but I guess pricing is the big topic, and that is always going to be one of the biggest topics.
Yeah, that is definitely a big topic, and I could talk the full hour just about pricing. Well, Jen, you know this. I've actually written an article about pricing strategies for freelancers, and it's on the Digital Nomad Girls website. So not now, but after this session, I would definitely recommend everyone to check that one out. But to summarize it a bit, there's a couple of decisions you need to make. And first of all, I think the biggest one is to see whether you want to be paid per project or per month with a fixed rate, or that you want an hourly rate. And again, there's a lot of details and a lot of considerations, which I all mentioned in that article that I wrote for you. But in summary, it's basically, if you're working on something where it's just very hard to know beforehand how many hours you're going to put in, then of course an hourly rate is recommendable, because this can be in a situation where a client, and it's often startups or one-person companies who aren't really sure what they want. So for example, if you're a designer or you write something, it's usually with something creative, they might ask for edit after edit after edit and more edits, which of course is very annoying if you work for a fixed price. On the other hand, when you do work for a fixed price, if you have a client that you work with every month, for example, for social media or as a VA, what you will see is that over time, like the more experience you get, the more efficient you get, you work faster while you actually deliver a higher quality than you did maybe 6 months before. But when you work for an hourly rate, this means that you deliver higher quality, but you get paid less because you spend less time to get it done, which is of course not the way it should be. So in those cases, it's I would advise to work for a fixed rate. Of course, to say something about how much you should actually ask for, that depends per person. I don't know. Pam was asking it, right? I don't know what you do, Pam. But what I would advise is just talk to some people who are doing similar things, who are in like the similar niches, similar skill set, and also compare the amount of experience you have, because you may be a new freelancer, but maybe you've got 10 years of experience from a 9-to-5 job, and of course that counts as well. So just ask around and also see what you feel comfortable with. If you see people out there charging, I don't know, $15 per hour, but that's just not good enough for you, then ask a bit more. And if you can justify it because that's just how experienced you are, that's how good you are, that's how professional you are, then that's okay. And of course, you can always raise your prices over time. I mean, I started 2 years ago with a very different price from what I'm charging now.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And like you said, actually, I should have mentioned that beforehand. You did write a guest post for us about exactly this topic, and I just dropped the link in the comments as well. So if anybody's interested, you can find the link there, where Talassa talked about this in more detail. And I think it's exactly how you say, like, why should you be earning less for doing better work in a shorter time just because you're charging yourself hourly enough? I mean, these are the things that you learn as you go along. Most people will make that mistake in the beginning and then realize, hang on, what's happening now? I'm earning less, or now I'm kind of trying to fill my time with things that aren't really that relevant just to get my weekly hours in. Which is also not very helpful for the client or for you. That's just wasting time. But yeah, I think also just a word, maybe you can say something about that, because obviously our group is all women, and I know that women and men usually tend to price themselves differently. And this is, and we all know about the wage gap all around the world and almost in every country. But interestingly enough, that also happens in the freelancing world. So this is not only in corporate environments, but even when people set their own prices. So do you have any experience with like women tending to undersell themselves or maybe pricing themselves too low? Is there anything you can say about that?
Right. I don't know of any like specific examples where I know that the girl earned less than the guy doing the same job within freelancing. But of course, I am aware that this happens. And in general, I think women are just, less advanced in negotiating and maybe a bit shy about it, which is just such a shame. I mean, when you look around and ask around what other people are asking for, make sure you're not only asking women, but also ask some guys and see what they're charging. And just make sure you can justify it. If you should know what you're worth. You should know your quality. Maybe the clients you've worked for in the past, or clients or projects or whatever. If you work for an agency, for clients. If you work for a company, projects, whatever. But don't be shy to ask for that. I mean, if you are giving, if you contributing to your clients' business, and you because of you they grow and they make more money, then you shouldn't have to work for a low salary. That's not necessary. So just be confident and yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Just what you said about ask not only women, but also men. That's a really good way to get around that pretty easily. That's good advice. I haven't heard that one before. So I'm just going to keep on going with the questions. I have a feeling we're going to get quite a lot. Isa is watching. Hello, Isa. I'm so glad you made it. We had our little virtual co-working day this morning, and Isabel was there. And I was telling everybody that we'll be doing the Facebook Live today. So Isa has a question, and she says, hello, what would you advise when clients ask for free audits? Is this something that you've experienced that you can tell us about?
Well, I mean, I've seen potential clients who would ask for, in the interview that you would have before hiring something, they already want you to come up with a strategy almost, so that they can decide whether they want you to hire you for that strategy or not. But obviously, creating the actual strategy is already work and should be paid for. So, I would be polite about it. And of course you can always do something out of goodwill, also depending on who the client is and how they approach you. But you should never have the feeling that you're working for free. So what I usually do is when I talk to a potential client, I just look at their website or their whatever they need help with, if it's in my case with marketing, and I just come up with 2 or 3 things that I would work on. But I would say something like, okay, I would be looking at this, and this, and that's what I would build your strategy for, without actually building the strategy, so that they understand that I see the things that need work or that need attention, but I'm not giving them anything yet. At the same time, when it's an existing client and you have a really good relationship with them, and they ask for something small, it's really up to you. And for me, honestly, I don't have like strict rules for it, but I have a few clients that they really appreciate me, they pay me well, and when they ask something small, I would just say, like, I mean, if it's like 15 minutes work, I'm not going to charge them extra for that, so then you can decide, like, yeah, you know what, this one is on me, and that's fine. But just, yeah, I mean, like, I think the main thing is, as soon as you get the feeling that you're working for free, no, you don't have to do that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and I also like what you said about your existing clients, because that's always the fine line. Obviously, if they're asking lots from you, then yes, charge them extra. But if it's like a little extra, always, be nice and add that in. So Isa is still watching. She says, I am a strategist, so giving the strategy away for free is not for me. But starting as a freelancer, I feel like I need to do it in order to persuade them to work with me. So I think you actually really answered exactly that right now.
Yeah, I think if I can just say something a little bit extra for that. Yeah, I mean, Isa, I don't know, if you already have work to show from a previous career, that you can share some results or something. But if you don't really have anything to show for yet, what I would recommend is, for example, see if there's a charity near you that you can help out with in exchange for a testimonial. Because obviously when it's a charity that you support, it's okay to do some work for free. So that would be something that could, give you some credibility.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And I'm glad that you said that, because this is like one of these very controversial topics that we see a lot. So I'm actually going to jump in and ask this question now. When you're getting started, because we're talking about getting started as a freelancer, when you're getting started, a lot of advice says work for free, do a few pro bono things, you know, just to get the experience, to get the testimonials and so on. And then on the other hand, I hear a lot of people saying, never work for free. Absolutely don't ever do this. And I have quite mixed feelings because I've done that myself and it's worked for me. And maybe that's because I knew where to draw the line, or maybe I was lucky. I don't know. So what do you think about that? What would you usually recommend?
All right. I think that knowing where to draw the line is really it. And where that line is differs for everyone, of course. So for me, it was, well, first of all, when I started freelancing, I didn't have any savings. So I took a job as a waitress just to make sure that I could cover my bills until I had enough freelance clients. And I was making, I think, 10 euros an hour as a waitress. Mm-hmm. So, and I started on Upwork, which is another very controversial platform. But it worked for me. I started on Upwork and I basically said, anything that I can do that pays more than the waitress job, I will do. And indeed, I started working with an hourly rate there. So anything above, like over, without the, or like with the fees that Upwork charged, like I think it took anything over $15 an hour. But of course, looking at the client, because if it was a, you know, like a huge company with a big budget, then I would still not be okay with it. So the clients that I started with, like one guy was actually, my first client was a Hollywood stunt double. So he was a professional free runner, but, you know, also being a freelancer, and he just sort of wanted to get a bit of a fan page. And so he asked me to help with that. And he was this super nice, grateful guy. So for someone like him, who was also just starting his career, I was happy to work for these. I think I worked for like $15 or $20 per hour or something. And then my second client was like a one-person interior designer, I think, you know, who wanted an Instagram account. So these were like really small projects, which I felt okay to work for, you know, like a lower rate for. And they gave me great feedback. They gave me great testimonials. So that was really good. Yeah, I was happy with that. But at the same time, you know, once you feel like you have enough testimonials, and they don't need to be more than 3 or 4, I think that's enough. After that, you don't have to work below your rate anymore. Like, don't keep doing it forever.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the point. I totally agree with you. I think you always have to start from somewhere. And if you don't have that experience, you know, if there's a job that's for free just to prove yourself and it's a good job, I would take it. But, you know, don't.
I think it's also important to, if it's a project that could potentially go on for a long time, that you agree beforehand with the client. Like, listen, I'll work for you for 1 month, for example, for, you know, below my rate, or whatever the agreement is that you make, but agree with him beforehand that after 1 month, 3 months, whatever, you will either renegotiate, or you already establish a price for after the first 3 months if he's satisfied with your work. But make that clear, because otherwise there's always going to be clients who are going to try to keep you on your very first rate even after a year, you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's super scary to renegotiate. I've only had to do it maybe twice or so, and it was terrifying. But you know what? Usually clients, if they like you and they appreciate you, they go like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like my first client, when I did it, I was like, you know, I really have to adjust, blah, blah. And she's like, oh yeah, I was just waiting for this to happen. That's fine. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay.
Exactly. I think that really links back to what we said before with women. We get so shy and awkward when we have to talk about money. And it's just such a shame, because indeed, like most clients, when you've showed that you do your work and that they can rely on you, they're happy to pay you a bit more, because finding someone else, train them again, make them familiar with their company, and finding someone who's reliable, that will cost a whole lot more than your pay raise. You know?
Exactly. That's a very good point. We actually have a question that relates to this a little bit, and also what you said. just now when you were talking about working as a waitress. So Kaylee is asking, how do you cope with the risk of no income, particularly in the first few months? So that's, you already touched upon that a little bit.
Yeah. So like I am actually one of these people who gets very nervous if there's no money coming in. So this was definitely an issue for me. So basically I just worked my ass off. I worked 30 to 40 hours a week in a cafe as a waitress, and another about 30 hours per week building up my client base. So I was like putting in 60 or more hours per week. I took the job as a waitress because I figured, obviously physically it's quite heavy, but you don't really have to use your brain for it, with all respect. But it's a simple job that way. And which made it okay for me to, after work or when I had a later shift in the morning, in the weekends, to actually use my brain for my freelance work. Because I can imagine when you've been using your brain in a normal office job all day long, then you're just too exhausted to also put in the mental energy to work on your own, like your freelance career. So yeah, that's what I did. And then over time, the more freelance clients I got, the less hours I took at the cafe, until after 6 months I could leave the waitress job, and I was confident that I was getting enough money every month to cover the bills. For me, that was the best way. Like I said, I didn't have any savings. Obviously, if you do have savings and you're happy to touch on them, then that's great, because you can really you can spend 60 hours per week on just freelancing. But if you're not in that situation, then I would say, take an extra job just to cover the bills, and then spend the rest of your time on freelancing.
Yeah. I really like that you said that, because it is, Kaylee actually in her question already said the most important word, which is risk, right? And there's always some kind of risk involved if you are starting to work for yourself, but also you have to realize that, yes, there's going to be a lot of work involved, and you're going to have to be happy to do that. I don't know anybody who's started as a freelancer with like a leisurely 4-hour work week or anything like that. That doesn't really exist. So you have to be willing to take that risk, put the hard work in, but also minimize the risk by, how you said, you didn't just like quit your job as a waitress and then freelance. No, you did both at the same time. So
actually, like I specifically took this waitress job because I wanted to build this freelance career. And no worries, I'm not working 60 hours a week anymore, far from. So it does get better over time, but at the beginning you have to put in some blood, sweat and tears, literally, actually. Almost literally.
Blood as well.
No, maybe not blood, but yeah.
I hope not. That depends on your freelance job, but yes. Excellent. So Kaylee, I hope in case you're watching still, I hope you're still watching. I hope that answered your question. Everybody else, we're still taking questions. While you are still deciding what you're asking, I'm going to go back to our already asked questions. So let's just quickly jump over that. So you had a couple of questions beforehand. One is from Danielle, and Danielle asked, do you have any tips for determining what type of content to share on social media, and how often to put yourself out there to potential clients? So obviously those are kind of two things, and this is already, I would say, somebody who's a little bit more advanced. Maybe they're already freelancing. And she says, right now I'm trying to focus on quality over quantity. What do you have anything to share about that? Is it necessary to put yourself out there on social media? Do you have to have a page and so on?
Well, if you're continuously looking for clients, then I think it's definitely a good idea, because once you get to this level where you have your fixed clients every month, you're sort of like, you have a stable income more or less. Then you don't really have to spend a lot of time on acquisition anymore, if you keep up, if you stay visible, basically. Because as long as you stay visible, every now and then you will be approached by new clients, which is of course a lot easier than you having to go out and actually do some acquisition. The way you want to do that, the way you want to be visible, it can be very diverse. It should be something that works for you. Also, of course, it depends a little bit on what kind of work you do. I think in general, it's good to have at least some social media pages, just because it also gives some credibility. I mean, imagine you talk to someone say you meet someone offline actually, and he looks you up and you just cannot be found. That's not really a good sign. On the other hand, there's also no point in having 10 different profiles if you don't update them regularly. So I would say focus on maybe 2 or 3 channels, and make sure that there's always some content. Like if it's not to grow, but just to be visible, have an update like once a week even, if it's a good one. Just to stay visible. Of course, if you want to grow your audience, then you should be doing a bit more. How much exactly you should be doing, well, that depends on the platform, it depends on your audience. It's a matter of testing to see how your audience reacts to it. And then something else that's also working quite well is just, I call it personal PR. Like get your opportunities for guest articles, like write some guest blogs for other people. Maybe do an interview in like cool Facebook groups, get your name out there. And there's so many ways to do it. Especially when you have a specific niche. I don't know, if you do Facebook advertisements for dentists, then find like the National Dentist Federation and see if they have a conference where you can maybe give a presentation or something. That's all ways to get in front of your clients. Yeah, it's a bit broader than just social media. But in terms of what kind of content, I would say, every now and then it can be, self-promoting, but definitely not too much. And it's better to, write some articles or some posts where you share some knowledge, rather than just selling yourself. Because I also saw someone else, I'm sort of half reading the questions as well.
I think it's Samantha who
exactly about
adding value. I was just going to mention that too.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you give value without giving away for free? I think the point here is that when you help and when you give advice, when you share your knowledge, yes, there's always going to be people who are going to use that, do it themselves and never hire you. But there's also a whole bunch of people who sort of try to do as you say, but they just know, what, I just don't like doing this. I just don't like being on Facebook all the time, or I just don't like setting up email campaigns. I know now how to code, but I still don't know how to make it look nice if it's about websites. But by then they already know that you do know what you're talking about and that you do enjoy that job. So then they will find you when they decide, what, I'm going to pay someone to do this. Yeah. They know where you are.
Yeah, I totally agree. And those are the clients that you want anyway. You don't want the ones who are trying to do everything themselves, because they're not your ideal client. Yeah. So that's all good advice. And I'm just gonna mention Samantha's comment. I didn't read it out because it's not a question as such, but Samantha said, when we were talking about giving things away for free, she said you can be of value without giving away too much for free. Maybe gain people's respect and trust in groups, etc. And gaining exposure is key and takes time. But as you say, you don't undervalue yourself. It's one of those things. It doesn't happen overnight, but if you are out there, you're putting yourself out there and you're giving value, people will remember. Obviously not everybody will remember, but people will remember.
The people who need your type of services, they will find you. They will, they'll see your name over and over again, and they will find you when they need you.
Exactly. Danielle is actually watching, so she says, wonderful advice. I'm a VA, so this makes perfect sense. Excellent.
Good.
Great. So if you are watching us, please let us know that you're there. Give us a thumbs up, or let us know where you're watching from, or take this time to ask your questions, because we still have a little bit of time with Thalassa to pick her brain. Also, in the meantime, while I pull up my other question, Thalassa, do you want to tell people where they can find out a little bit more about you now that they're getting to know you in the group? As you mentioned, this is a good way for people to get themselves out there.
Yeah, well, I mean, I do quite a lot of things. So I do social media and content marketing for my clients, but then recently I also started helping other freelancers getting started with their freelance career. I do that under the name Freelance Kickstarter. So you can actually, it's a Facebook group first. So if you just search for that, you will find it, and it's free for everyone. Everyone can join it. And then linked to that, there's also an online course specifically about client acquisition. And if you want to know about everything else that I'm doing, you can either go to www.thalassavanbeek.com, and from there just links to all my projects, or you can just simply, send me a message here on Facebook, and I'd be happy to talk, chat, brainstorm, help. And they would just say hi, whatever you want. So.
Exactly. I've actually dropped both of those links in the
cool.
comments so people can find them there. So just quickly going back, I saw a question by Isa. Isa had another question. She said, how do you deal with friends not understanding what you're doing? So that's more of a personal rather than a professional question, but I think a lot of us can relate to that.
Yeah. This is actually a bit of a tricky one for me, because I don't know, like, okay, this just sounds really stupid. Like, I never really had that many friends, but basically I don't have friends from still left from high school. I have some friends from university, but most people that I consider my close friends now are actually people that I met after university. And for some reason, I always attracted, or my friendships were always established with people who are not necessarily freelancers, but who were sort of like open-minded. And, they were people who were a little bit like me, at least in some aspects. And that's why we became friends, right? So I don't really have this problem of, friends that I've known for 20 years who are still living in the small town in my home country. I do understand that happens a lot out there. I do see it with some of my friends. But I can't really advise on how to deal with it since I didn't have to go through it. I think the only thing that I can share in general with friendships, and I think it applies here as well. Look, if they don't understand it, that's okay. If they are a brain surgeon, then you also don't understand their jobs, right? But as long as they're supportive, then that's all that matters, and maybe you can show them something sometime, or maybe you can, I don't know, if you're working for a co-working space, and invite them to lunch sometime, or just share a bit of what you're doing. But as long as they're supportive, it's fine. Now that I say this, I do have one person in my life who has absolutely no idea what I'm doing. It's my dad. He has no idea. He just knows that I moved to Barcelona. I think when I did, he was afraid that I would be calling every week to ask for money. I don't. So he's like, okay, I guess you're doing well for yourself. But I mean, he would be my perfect example of someone who has no clue, but is supportive anyway. And I deal with it in a way of like, I tell him when I have a new client, but I just don't go too much into detail. But yeah, so going back to being supportive, but when you see that people are maybe jealous because you're traveling a lot, or because maybe at some point you're making more money than they do, when they become jealous and negative, honestly, I feel like you should really reconsider if those people are actually your friends. And I'm not saying that you should ban them out of your life, but it's okay to take a step back maybe. And obviously not overnight, but if you feel like someone's just draining you down the whole time.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, for me, it's relatively similar. I mean, I don't really have many friends left from like high school ages or or undergrad. Like from postgrad, yes, but we all went in such different directions anyway that I think like I don't really have to, explain myself as such. Yeah. But it's what you said in the beginning. It's kind of surround yourself with the people who get it. It's like one of those cliches, and we've seen the quote on Instagram and Pinterest, and I'm pretty sure I've posted it before, but it's true. Like, this is what D&G is all about as well. It's about community. It's about having these people in your life who actually get it, where you don't have to explain yourself and justify what you're doing. So it can be hard. That doesn't mean that you have to get rid of your old friends. I didn't do that either, but it's add some new friends who do understand. And I will read out one comment because Susan wrote it so nicely for me, so I don't have to say it myself. She said, Isa, join the D&G Inner Circle if you haven't done it already. She says it really makes up for those friends who don't understand what you do. And I love that. And that's exactly what the D&G Inner Circle is about. So as Susan has already brought it up, I thought I'd read it out because I really love that.
Yeah, no, it's true. And also, you can have different friends for different aspects in your life, right? I don't know, when I was younger and I went horse riding, the things I talked about with my friends from the horses are different than the things I talked about with people from school, and that's okay. And it's about how much these older friendships, how much do they mean to you, and if they're important to you, like I said, try to share some things, try to explain some things, show them what you're doing as far as that's possible. Because if they are, close friends, and they're happy to see that and to, see what you're doing because they care about you.
Yeah, exactly. Totally agree. Like some of my best friends have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, but they're supportive. They find it interesting to see me on Facebook or whatever, Facebook Lives, but they're doing their own thing, but you're still friends.
Yeah.
So a couple more questions, and those are, I think, what we should talk. Maybe we'll focus the last time that we have on how do you get those clients? Because let's face it, whenever we're talking about freelancing, yes, there's a little bit of the mindset, and yes, there's a little bit of the pricing and all of that. But the main thing is always, how do I find the clients? Where are the clients? Give me the clients. And we have a couple of questions about that. So Angela is watching. Hi, Angela. It's so nice that you're watching. She said, hi, ladies. Any advice on how to go after the big fish, like the big corporations that usually hire agencies? Is this something that you know about? Have you done that in the past? I don't have experience with that myself.
So from my main clients that I have now, at the moment I work for basically 5 different companies, of which 2 are small startups, but the other 3 are actually serious companies. These big companies, they were actually all, I found them via referrals. Like one was actually the Dutch lottery, the Euro jackpot. And someone who I had worked with before, he got an interim job at this lottery company. And they needed someone, and he asked me, and I've been working with them now for 1.5 years, I think. So that was really good. The other 2 are actually via an agency, but so these are 2 different brands. It started with one of them via like there was this girl working at this brand, and she knew that the agency they worked with was actually like they work really closely together. So this client and the agency were together looking for someone for social media. She told her boyfriend told his best friend told me. And that's basically how I got to work for that brand. But yes, via an agency. But the good thing about the agency is that they were so happy with my work for this one client that just 2 months ago, they gave me another global client. So yeah, obviously, getting work via referrals, that's probably not going to happen in your first few months. So these big fish, it's something that you get later on via your network. So it's different in the beginning. In the beginning, like I said, I started with Upwork, being active in Facebook groups, really, really looking around. Like I said, I started with 30 hours per week building my freelance career, which means that when I didn't have any clients yet, I was really spending 30 hours per week looking for jobs.
That is a good point. That is a really good point. And that brings me to another question, which I almost missed. So I just scrolled back through the questions. Colleen asking, I want to come back to Angela's question as well about the agencies. But okay, maybe we'll do that quickly now. No, let's go back to Colleen's question. Colleen asks, please ignore this question if it's been answered, but how do you find your first few clients? So you've already touched upon that. But this is, I kind of just want to go back to that question really quickly before we then dive into the agency question again, because I think there will be a lot of girls watching who haven't had their first clients yet, So if once you already have some, you might there's referrals and all of those things, but the first few. And we've actually got a blog post coming up about exactly this topic very soon, which I think next week, which I'm excited about. And this is exactly where a bunch of you girls shared how they found their first clients. So what would you advise? Like,
right. So
first one.
I think the first ones can come from a couple of sources. One being these job boards like Upwork, freelancer.com, those kind of platforms. Just scroll through them and make sure that you have something to show for when you approach these people. I don't know, like when you build websites, if you don't have a portfolio yet, build a dummy website for a fake made up company or for a charity or, your local animal shelter or whatever. It doesn't matter, just so you can show something. If you want, like me, or if you're a VA, like social media and content, start your own blog where you can write some articles to show your writing style, and then build some social media around it so you can show social media results. But so you have something to show when you approach people on these platforms that don't know you at all. Another way that I think a lot of people forget about is just tell everyone what you're doing. And I mean everyone. Make sure that you're very specific, because I see a lot of people like, I'm a virtual assistant. Do you know any clients? But a lot of people actually don't really know what a virtual assistant does. And also, it's so broad and it can include so many skills that just the word virtual assistant, it just doesn't mean much to people who are in the VA. So instead, say like, I can manage social media accounts for small business owners. Just making something up now, but be very precise. And then reach out to people, put it on your Facebook profile, put it on your LinkedIn, everywhere. I'm looking for small business owners who need help with their social media pages. I'm looking for startups who need help with their branding. I'm looking for, businesses who need a new website, whatever it is that you're doing. And the thing is, like, I actually thought like, oh, but I don't know any business owners. Turns out I know a lot of people who know business owners, so just really give that a try, and you'll be surprised to see what comes back.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. This is exactly what I would have said as well. I think when we think about becoming a freelancer, we think, okay, need the Facebook page, need the website, need this and this, need a marketing strategy. No, what you need first is just to put yourself out there. And this can be the hardest step for so many people.
Yeah.
And when people ask me, how did you first get started? How did you get your clients? All over through my network, every single one through my network, and yes, then Upwork as well. And Upwork worked well for me, to be honest. I know it's a controversial topic, but that's the way it worked for me. So I'm not going to hide that, I also know in different jobs, it can be much harder to get work. Mine was translation, so maybe it's easier in this area, but you don't need a Facebook page. Everybody has a Facebook profile. Hey guys, oh my God, you know what I'm so excited about? I'm actually starting to work as a freelancer. Your friends and family are going to be excited about that. That you're not spamming them. They're going to be super excited, and they're going to be telling their uncle and their aunt and their florist and their hairdresser and whatnot. And that's how stuff happens, like I found all my jobs through this at first. So go to networking events, just go to Meetup and just tell everybody, like talk to your taxi driver. Oh yeah, by the way, I'm a freelancer, I write. So it doesn't matter. Just, you have to get used to putting yourself out there. And I think that's one step that people just skip all the time. I see this so much. And there just isn't a magic formula. You just have to, like you said, you spend 30 hours a week trying to get those clients. They don't just fall from the sky. I see a lot of people come, not a lot, but I've seen it in the past where people come, okay, I want to be a freelancer. People tell me I should just avoid Upwork. I just can't be bothered with that. Like, how do I find them? And I'm like, try everything, Exactly. Upwork is not the only thing, and it might not be the best thing or the best platform, and it might not be as good as it was a few years ago, but it is a way,
Exactly. And you know what, even if you use Upwork for only the first 3 months or so, it gives you experience with how to apply for jobs, how to write cover letters, how to negotiate your prices. It just, and after 3 months on Upwork, you just feel so much more confident in going through that whole process of getting a new client. So yeah, and I agree with you. I think it's definitely, in the beginning, it's absolutely valuable to be on these platforms.
Yeah, exactly agree. So we had a little hiccup with Facebook. I missed like 5 comments, so 5 questions. So let me just quickly catch up with them.
Sure.
Hi, Susan. Who was this? I think I missed something that Angela said, because we have a little discussion about Upwork. Samantha is saying, once you start getting many clients, how do you juggle your time? I don't have many, but I'm already starting to struggle. So I'm working on my productivity this month, thanks to Jenny. Hi. Do you have any tips? Do you hire assistants? And this actually ties in nicely with another question that we had earlier, which was from Christine, who asked us, thinking long term, how do I maintain this momentum and ensure that as one contract ends, I have another one to step into? So this is kind of, those are the 2 flip sides of that. Like, how do I make sure I have another one lined up when my contract ends, but also how do I not get overwhelmed? So
Right.
basically, I guess.
So I think to make sure you always have some work lined up, in the beginning, you just have to, even when you have clients, you still have to keep going with your client acquisition. Obviously, not 30 hours per week anymore, but I made, for a pretty long time, I made a point of 1 hour a day. Didn't matter how busy I was. If I would have to wake up 1 hour early, I would do it. But 1 hour a day, I would spend on client acquisition. So that I would have enough clients where I'm just not just comfortable, but where I'm more than comfortable, where I knew that if a client would drop out now, it's still okay. So I think that's a risk. Like, once you start to feel comfortable, you kind of forget about client acquisition. And then when a contract does end, or when someone drops you for whatever reason, then all of a sudden you start panicking, or at least I panic. Make a point of, keep going with your acquisition until you're more than comfortable. And how to not get overwhelmed. I've reached that point, I think, after a year, where I was just like, it's fun, but it's too much, and I don't know how to manage it anymore. I think this is something, it's a bit different for everyone, but a few things that worked for me is working with very clear to-do lists and really sticking to it. And I think that's almost like a sport, where you just have to train yourself to sticking to your to-do list. And it's very easy, especially when you don't have hard deadlines. It's very easy to just postpone everything to the next day. But just train it, and don't get mad at yourself when you had a really bad, unproductive week where you just kept procrastinating. No, don't get mad at yourself. Just start over again. There's a fresh new day every day where you can, train yourself again in sticking to your to-do lists. It's also, again, depending on what kind of work you do, but it's worth looking into the tools that you use. Like, when you work with social media, the scheduling tools that you use, are they the most useful for what you need to do? Like, for example, I love Buffer. I do everything with it. I really like Trello for my to-do list and for project management, Slack for communication with my clients. Also try to make sure, like, sometimes you have to educate your clients. One of my clients was contacting me via email, WhatsApp, Slack, Asana, and if he could, even more ways. And I really brought him back to just Slack and only WhatsApp when it's very urgent. Because if you have to keep an eye on 5 different platforms at all times, that takes too much time. And then of course you can well, depending on what you do, but you could see what you can outsource. For example, all my accounting stuff, I hate it. I don't even want to know about it. It's the first thing I outsourced when I started freelancing, and it just saves me a lot of time and especially a lot of frustration. And then in times where I'm really busy, I sometimes outsource blog writing or some other small stuff. At the moment, I'm not outsourcing anything other than my accounting work. But yeah, I've done that in the past, and it can definitely help you. Absolutely.
This actually brings me back to the question that Angela asked earlier about how do you find those big fish agencies, those big fish clients, those who usually just hire agencies. So
Right.
she's a freelancer. Where's the maybe let's turn around. What's the difference between you being a freelancer or you having your own agency? And I see this more and more. People who are just one person, they are selling themselves as an agency. They don't say, hey, I am Jenny, I am the freelancer, but hey, I'm Jenny, I run my agency called blah, blah. The client doesn't necessarily need to know that your agency is currently just you, but maybe that will give the impression that it's bigger. And if you say, we have a team who takes care of this and this and this, then you can start outsourcing. Is this something that you've have experience with yet, or is that something that you think is coming up for you soon?
Right. So I actually went the other way around. When I started, I built my website and everything like I was, I didn't call it an agency, but yeah, a business. Basically, I wasn't lying about it, but I made it sound like it was more than just me. But I found out that I don't really like to manage people. And if this would have grown into a agency with maybe an SEO specialist and some VAs, and if I would outsource all these things, I would, if they're my clients, I would still be the final responsible person. So I would still double check everything, and I just don't like that. I feel responsible for other people's work, and I don't like to be in that position. So I'm actually, I haven't updated my website in forever, but I'm now in the process of rebuilding my website, and it will really show that it's just me, not an agency. And then of course, when one of my clients says like, hey, you know what, I need someone who's really specialized in SEO, which is not me, of course I'd be happy to help that person and refer them to someone, and maybe even make a deal with the person I refer them to, like, hey, if you get this client, give me whatever, how much money. Although honestly, I don't even think I would ask that, because I just, I'm happy when other people get work. But that's something you could do. If it's on a regular basis, of course you can make agreements. But then after that referral, it's the other person working for that client, and you're not responsible for their mistakes, basically. That's of course, yeah. I mean, of course, it's a personality trait. Others are very good at managing people, and they know how to do it. They enjoy doing it, and if that's the case, then by all means, start an agency. Absolutely. I have to say though that yes, some big companies, they always want to work with an agency, but there's also companies, maybe not the big fish, but still companies with budgets who actually prefer working with a freelancer. One of my clients, one of the startups that I work with, when we started, for some reason, they ended up with working with an agency and with me simultaneously. And it was a bit weird. So quite soon they decided to go just with the agency, thinking, bigger, more experience, more people. And by the end of the year, I sent them an email like, hey, happy Christmas. They were doing a Kickstarter campaign at the time. So just checking in with them like, hey, I hope it all went well, blah, blah. Wasn't even selling myself, just checking in with them. And they actually said like, hey, it's so good you reached out. Maybe we should talk after the holidays. And it turned out that they were very disappointed with the agency, because they were just a number and communication was really slow. When something had to be done, it would take days before it was picked up by the agency. So they actually took me back, and now it's probably my favorite client, and the communication is really clear, really fast. I'm happy to do work for them very, very quickly if there's a deadline. And yeah, it's just been really nice working for them, and I'm pretty sure they'll stick with me instead of an agency for, quite a bit longer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's the thing, with this whole agency thing or not, outsourcing or not, it depends on your personal preference. If you are getting that much work that you can outsource some stuff, try outsource something, see how you like it, see how it goes, see if that works for you. And if it does, then great. And if not, then take only the clients that you really, really want to work with, and that pay you the best as well.
Exactly. If I can add a little bit more to that. I mean, if you want to start an agency just because you want to make more money, you want to keep growing, instead of, starting an agency and getting on more clients and having to deal with, more channels, more projects. If you're that good that you get that much work, you could also just raise your prices, stick to just a few clients, but charge them more, and that way you can you can make more money while not necessarily working a whole lot more.
That's a good point. So we have one more live question in by another Angela asking, this is a little bit of a not controversial, but I will have something to say about this question as well. The question is, any suggestions which Facebook groups would help me to find my first virtual job? And Angela had commented earlier, she said that when we were talking about Upwork, she says, I'm struggling because I don't even get a job on Upwork. And yes, I totally get that. Upwork has become much trickier to find work on. There's much more competition. They're much more strict with who they even let create profiles and so on. So a lot of people skip it altogether, and then they hear you can find jobs in Facebook groups. Go into Facebook groups and find jobs there. How do you do that? So first I'll ask you if you have some advice on that, and then I'll add in Germany we say I'll add my own mustard, which means I'll give you my own opinion about this.
Great. So yes, for not finding work on Upwork, I mean, there can be 1,000 different reasons why you haven't found someone on Upwork yet. And it's hard to say something about it. And then, it can be the exact, it says my internet connection is unstable, but there
was a little blip, but I think it's fine.
Okay. So, I don't know. The thing is, there's also a lot of bad jobs out there on Upwork, and you sort of have to recognize them. And maybe in the beginning you don't recognize them yet. So maybe you've just been applying to a lot of bad jobs, basically. I was actually going through Upwork today to see what's out there at the moment. And you can see how long ago a client has been, like, who posts a job ad online, how long ago they have been on the platform. So I saw jobs that were posted 20 days ago, and then it showed that the poster, that the client, last time he was online was 20 days ago. So basically posted the job ad and never came back. So these are like little things that you can, that you can see and start to understand, like, what are good jobs and what are bad jobs, and then start by only applying for the good jobs. That will already increase the chance that you get the job. Then of course it depends on how you write your application letter, how you approach the client. There's just so many different things, and honestly I'm happy to because it's been more than an hour now. Yeah. I'm happy to brainstorm in the group, or I forgot who wrote this, but if you want to send me a private message, maybe share some of the application letters that you wrote. I'd be happy to have a look, maybe give some suggestions. Also be happy to do it in the group so others can benefit as well.
Do you have any, sorry to interrupt you, but I just want to quickly get back to that. First of all, thank you. That's really nice to offer that to Angela. I hope she's still watching. I think back to the Facebook groups, is this something, I mean, we've already touched upon it a little bit, saying you should give value and so on. Just very briefly, what would you recommend to people who are trying to find work on Facebook?
Right. Don't spam, because no one likes that. But wherever you see someone asking a question that's sort of relevant to what it is that you're doing, just give them advice. Just help them the best way you can, because as we already said earlier during this talk, if they at some point want to hire you, like there will be a point where it's like, okay, no, this is not my job. I don't want to be doing this, but I saw this girl who always gave me this great advice. I want her to do it for me. So just give and give, help, like sincerely help. And then the other way, because this is not going to happen overnight, then also find save all the good groups in your bookmark bar and go in there every single day, because there's a lot of groups where people actually post job offers. Go in every day and apply to them.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would have said as well. I think there's so much hype about how do you find jobs in Facebook groups that people think, I need to go in there, I need to tell everybody what I'm doing constantly. And as from the position of a Facebook admin, you're not going to make yourself very popular, and people don't go for that stuff either. It's just not going to work. So save yourself the time and the energy, and just take half an hour in the morning, half an hour in the evening, pick your favorite Facebook groups, find the relevant ones. If you are a VA for graphic designers, and go join some of the graphic design groups and whatnot. It's just find the right ones, write down when they have their promotions posts. So set yourself each week, which day you have to go into which group. For example, we have the Tuesday pitches where people can pitch themselves, and we have the Freelance Fridays when people can say, hey, I have a job. So write all of those down and always check. A lot of groups have those, but please never spam.
Don't spam. If I can give one more advice to that, your personal profile, make sure that from your profile it's clear what it is that you do, whether it's with a banner in your profile, or with some posts on your profile, or even in the little work section, like works at, and then create a Facebook page for whatever it is that you're doing, but so that when people see your name pop up when you give this advice and they click your name, they don't see some vague nothing profile. Yes, I know it's your personal space, and it's for that, but if you want to get work this way, it should also reflect what you're doing, because if they don't understand from your profile what it is that you're offering, they're not going to ask you for it.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I should have totally said that. Thank you for bringing that up. There are so many ways to use Facebook cleverly for that now. First of all, always use your real name. Don't use a weird name. It's just not professional. And if you are on Facebook to find work, that's part of what you're doing on Facebook, then be professional. Use your profile photo wisely, use your cover photo wisely. Even those you can have 5 pinned photos on Facebook in your profile, your favorite pictures. I've seen people use them really cleverly and turn them into collage. So saying, hey, I'm a freelance writer, you can find me at, add your add your website, your URL, and so on. So those are all simple things. But if you are that person who goes into the groups, and let's say you're a VA, for example, Hannah, we had her on last week, and Hannah is in our group. She's active and she's a VA, and she teaches people how to be a VA, but people know that. If anybody in any group asks, hey, I need a VA, do you know anyone? Bam, they tag Hannah, and then they immediately go on her profile and says, oh yeah, I'm a VA. I teach other people how to be VAs, so they know, oh, this is actually what she's doing. She's legit.
Exactly. But she never spams.
She hasn't spammed a single time. She is very respectful. She always brings value. She's always polite and helps people, and people remember that. So
exactly.
People who need a VA, I tag Hannah and Esther. Those are the 2 people I tag, So those are
exactly.
It takes a little while.
Exactly. You can get work without spamming, and actually long term, that's the best approach.
Yeah. I think long term it's the only approach.
True.
I think we're going to have to wrap it up now. I want to finish with a few things. First of all, one comment that we just got in by Colleen. Colleen says, this has been amazing. I'm just starting out as a freelancer, literally 2 weeks in, and this is so helpful. Thank you both so much. That's so nice. Thank you, Colleen. I'm so glad you're watching and that has been helpful. And I wanted to mainly read that out for you because you were the one giving all the value. So thank you, Talassa, for that. Do you want to quickly tell people again where they can find you if they have more questions, or if they want to find out what you do, if they want to check out your course as well? Do you want to share a little bit?
Sure. So if you have any questions, I'm always happy to brainstorm. So if it's a question you're comfortable with, share it in the Digital Nomads Girls group and tag me in it so other people can benefit as well. If it's something a little bit more personal, just send me a private message. I warn you, I'm not the best with private messages, so it may sometimes take a day before I reply, but I definitely will reply. Other than that, like I said, you can join the freelance Kickstarter group, which is all about, getting your remote freelance career off the ground. And then indeed I have at the moment it's a client acquisition course for aspiring freelancers. So it's really for people who already know they have the skills because of their corporate jobs or 9-to-5 jobs, they have the skills, but they don't know how to find these first clients, how to get started. And I just launched a course this year, so it's still very new. And because of that, at the moment it's only $19. Because I'm just really still looking for feedback. I already got some really good feedback, so every day I'm updating it, working with this feedback. But as long as I'm still working on that, I'll keep the price at only $19, so you can all still benefit from that. And if you want to know anything else, just drop me a message.
Excellent. That's like a really good deal, I think. Like, and there's not much to discuss about that. Like, just check it out if you have any questions in that area. And I was laughing when you were mentioning the Facebook messages. It's really sweet of you to actually offer people that they can message you. Like, I'm so bad with my Facebook messages. It's a disaster. Like, I have like hundreds of message requests that I haven't even replied to yet. Anyway, you're not the only one. I wanted to say a huge thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you, girls, for watching and for answering, for asking all these questions and for sharing your experiences as freelancers as well. And then obviously a huge thank you to you, Thalassa. We've been talking about doing this for so long. I'm really glad we did it. It was really fun. I learned some stuff as well, which is always great. And I'll be online, and you might also be online. So if people still have questions afterwards, they can drop them in the comments, and
absolutely,
we'll try to answer them there.
So thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. It's really fun. Have a lovely afternoon in Barcelona.
Thank you.
I'll see you in the group.
Okay, see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.